So I guess that's sort of what I wanted to talk about today, the unpredictable and ever-flowing nature of the Buddha Dharma and appropriate response. So there's reverb and then a quick reaction to that. And now there's no reverb. And of course, our notion of what a temple is flowing and changing with these strange times we live in. So for us at the Village Zendo, the temple used to be 588 Broadway, and for every Zazen Kai, we would show up there. And then COVID hit, and the temple became Zoom, our computer screens. And now the temple has become some combination of the two. So what is the true temple? Are they all the true temple or none of them? One thing's for sure, this temple does not feel exactly like the temple I sat in at 588, nor is it quite like the temple I've been sitting in for the past couple of years in front of my computer. It's the temple of today, the temple of now, which is already arising and passing away. This arising and passing away came up for me quite dramatically last weekend, last Sunday, because as you know, we celebrated the memorial for our dear Sangha member, Yuka Tork, and I was unable to attend because I was committed to a rite of passage of a different kind. My niece was celebrating her wedding. And I phrase it like that instead of saying my niece was getting married, because due to COVID, the form of the wedding had changed a bit. So actually she got married on the West Coast last fall when Omicron started hitting us hard. And a lot of people, relatives on the East, weren't able to get on a plane and go out and attend the wedding. So she scheduled a second wedding celebration in the spring here on the East Coast, and sort of recreated the feel of a wedding. She turned up in her wedding dress, looked beautiful, and there was a big tent at a local winery with the flaps open outside to a beautiful spring day with a nice breeze coming in. So felt relatively safe, as if we didn't all need to face each other in a mask. And on the table, just as maybe with at the wedding reception last fall, there was a centerpiece at each table. And at ours, people couldn't stop talking about it because it was a vase of beautiful flowers, but the center of it all was this big, splashy, beautiful peony. People couldn't take their eyes off it. It was just completely gorgeous, a real embodiment of spring. And yes, I sat chit-chatting with various relatives. My eye kept straying to that peony and thinking how I used to think practice in order to get enlightenment was a bit like trying to become that beautiful peony, radiant, so that when you truly realize your Buddha nature, you're transformed into this wonderful, radiant creature full of wisdom and compassion. But actually, you know, from my somewhat older and more jaded vantage point now, I could see that, well, this beautiful flower is just one stage in a process. So, you know, a number of weeks before it was a seed. Was that seed any less a peony than the flower on the table right now? And that seed need to meet certain causes and conditions in order for the process to result in that flower. Needed water, earth, sun, someone to care for it with a bit of love in his or her heart, so it could grow and mature into what I was looking at now and was giving me so much joy. And thinking about it that way, thinking of this flower as a process and not as a final destination, I could really see what Dogen meant when he said the truth is fully present right from the beginning. The Buddha nature is fully present and luminous in the beginner who walks through the Zendo door on his first day and hasn't learned how to do Zazen yet. Just as the peony is fully present in the seed, fully present in the shoot that comes out of the ground, fully present in the bud, and so on and so forth. And because we're dealing with a process and not a fixed thing, I also knew that that beautiful flower was but a stage in the process. And quite soon the wedding celebration would be over. People would come around and clean up the tables, and it would wind up in the compost. It would decay, become part of the ground from which it arose. And who knows, in a few weeks or months, perhaps it would be nourishment for dandelions or weeds or some other kind of flower. So we really get hold of the wrong end of the stick when we believe that enlightenment or being a Buddha uh, is uh, a thing that can be attained, and is anyway separate from the process of practice. Uh, it's something that is illumined at each stage of our practice. And the more sincerely and devotedly we practice, the more it is illumined. So how exactly does this work? Well, when we begin, we spend a lot of time trying to get what we think is the right mind. And we think that, oh, if only I didn't have a discriminating mind, didn't have so many thoughts, then I would really enter whatever state that I conceive enlightenment or realization to be. And you encounter students all the time in Dokusan. They say, could you recommend some good books on Zen? Now, I know I'm not supposed to read books because they're not it. But still, I would appreciate some book recommendations. Or, oh, my meditation is going terribly today. I have so many thoughts coming up moment after moment. Or, oh, my meditation is going very well. My mind is very quiet. So it's normal to think that what we're trying to do is to basically become mindless, sort of like that flower that just naturally grew from the seed and went through the various stages of maturity without a lot of fuss about it. It just somehow knew what to do. But human development is not like that. And there's nothing wrong with reading books and talking about concepts. There's nothing wrong with learning deportment in the Zendo and someone correcting you, and then learning how to do it the right way, whatever the right way happens to be at that particular moment. And as I was speaking about last time in regard to practicing the precepts, yes, over time, one becomes so intimate with the precepts that they're kept in a more spontaneous, free-flowing way. It's true. But being humans, we need to spend a lot of time studying the precepts, reflecting on the precepts, acting on the precepts, and wondering, oh, did I get that one right? Did I get that one wrong? And so on, in this kind of uncomfortable mixture of reflection and sort of self-criticism, and on and on and on. All of these are part of the developmental process, and all of these stages of the developmental process are themselves a luminous reflection of the truth. In Zazen, one thing that happens is at first we feel that we're being disturbed by thoughts, that we're supposed to get rid of thoughts, but over time, and not over a great deal of time, we notice that thoughts are just part of the process of Zazen. They arise from we know not where, they go to we know not where, just as the sound of a bird outside the window arises from we know not where, and when it's over, we don't know where it has gone. There's a koan where a couple of teachers try to help a student who has this notion that no mind means not having a human brain, not having thoughts, and so on. And this monk came to Master Joshu and said, does a newborn baby have the sixth consciousness or not? Now, the sixth consciousness refers to a strand of Buddhist philosophy. So the first five consciousnesses are the five senses that we ought to ordinarily think of. The sixth is the one that is conscious of the others and is conscious of thought and starts to distinguish between what the senses are coming in. So the senses are showing us. So, we don't mistake a zafu for a zabuton. Although they're both temples, I don't mistake this room in my apartment in Brooklyn for the Zendo in Tribeca. I also look and I think, oh, well, what's going on here seems kind of screwed up. That's kind of wrong. Oh, what's going on here? That seems pretty good. That's kind of right. So that's the sixth consciousness. And so the monk asks, does a newborn baby have the sixth consciousness or not? And what he's implying here is the baby just experiences things purely without making distinctions, without making judgments, not having any notion of right or wrong. So maybe that's the model of what enlightenment is. Well, Joshu tries to steer him in the right direction. So the monk asks, does a newborn baby have the sixth consciousness or not? And Joshu says, like a ball dropped in swiftly flowing water. Well, that seems a little bit opaque, although what he's pointing to is to the experience of each one of us, whether we make judgments or not, whether we're thinking a lot, whether things are flowing spontaneously, or with a lot of aggravation or effort, like a ball dropped in swift flowing water. I always think of it as like being a ping pong ball. Where is it? Each moment, each nen, where is it? Where did it go? Well, this didn't clear things up for the monk, so he went and asked Master Tutsu, what is the meaning of like a ball dropped on swift flowing water? Tutsu said, moment to moment, non-stop flow. Moment to moment, non-stop flow. If we really understand what Master Tutsu is pointing to here, we can understand why realization and enlightenment are not separate from our practice, moment to moment. Far from being a means to attaining some end, far from the seed just being a means to becoming that beautiful flower. Our practice itself is the flowering of the Buddha Dharma. And in traditional Buddhism, there's a description of how our practice, particularly Zazen, just observing our minds, helps us embody the Buddha's wisdom and compassion. So the five senses give us the ability to act in the world, to be present in the world, to be a participant in the world. The sixth consciousness goes from being making such compulsive distinctions to being more of an intuition. So more and more we develop a feel for where things want to go, a feel for the compassionate or wise course, even though we don't quite know why this is the right direction. We learn to trust our own innate wisdom in the context of practice. And then another consciousness, the seventh, that's the one that the Buddha talks about in the Four Noble Truths, craving and aversion. So after the sixth consciousness makes its distinctions, the seventh goes, oh yeah, I want more of that, I want more of that, I want more of that, or I don't want any of that, I don't want any of that. But with practice, that seventh consciousness begins to relax and to see that whether it's the seed or the flower or the dry, decayed stalk, each one is a luminous expression of the Buddha Dharma. This is called the wisdom of equality. And finally, the eighth consciousness, which is the stage where the endless round of cause and effect takes place, the empty stage. That becomes a bright mirror reflecting all things just as they are. And so our practice is both an embodiment of these various wisdoms and a cultivation of these various wisdoms. There's no final arrival point because there's no real beginning point. The first day that we showed the Bodhi mind, that the Bodhi mind arose in us, the aspiration to practice the way was not separate in any way from our embodiment of the way, our embodiment of the luminous truth of the Buddha Dharma. And so I guess my message reflecting on all of this is whatever is going on in your life, whether it's a wedding, whether it's a funeral, whether it's an epidemic, or whether it's a quiet moment spent in the presence of people you love. Each moment is an opportunity for practice. Each moment is an opportunity to practice the wisdom and compassion of the Buddha in quite an ordinary way, not in any special way. And then the moment goes, and on to the next, and on to the next. Continuous, ceaseless practice, as Dogen says, moment to moment, non-stop flow.